The academy stood at the center of the galaxy's most respected alliance, a place where the brightest young beings of many worlds came together to learn, to compete, and to prove the strength of their kind. The great hall was filled with voices of dozens of species, some tall and scaled, some covered in fur and claws, others shining with strange glowing skin. Banners of every world hung above, and the air buzzed with tension. Today was not a normal lesson. Today was the Predator assignment. The instructors stood on a raised platform, their long cloaks shimmering with symbols of authority, their eyes scanning the students below. One of them raised a clawed hand for silence, his voice booming through the chamber. Every one of you has been ordered to bring a predator from your home world. You will show us its strength. You will prove your species' mastery of survival. Today we learn who truly walks as hunters among the stars. The students cheered, some growling, some clicking, some hissing, each proud of the beast they had captured. The first student stepped forward, a towering reptilian youth from the swamps of Zelnar. Behind him came a cage that shook with fury. Inside was a lizard-like predator with jaws lined with hundreds of sharp teeth. Its eyes glowed yellow, and its tail whipped against the bars. The hall filled with impressed murmurs. "A swamp stalker," whispered one alien. "Those things can tear metal apart," another added. "Only the strongest can tame them." The reptilian student puffed out his chest with pride. The next was an insectoid being from the burning deserts of Krathel. She guided in a beast with long legs and venom dripping from its fangs. Its body shimmered with dark colors as it hissed and snapped at anyone who came close. The instructors nodded with approval. "A sand reaper," one announced, "deadly, fast, feared even by warriors of Krathel." The insectoid female tilted her head proudly, her mandibles clicking in satisfaction. One after another, predators were revealed, winged hunters with talons like swords, scaled monsters that could crush bones with a single bite, shadowy creatures that moved faster than the eye could follow. The hall grew louder with every reveal, the air thick with the heat of beasts straining against cages, their growls, roars, and hisses echoing against the walls. Then came the moment that silenced the room. It was the human's turn. He was younger than most of the others, his body soft compared to scaled warriors and armored insectoids, his skin pale, his clothing simple, no claws, no horns, no glowing eyes. He stepped calmly into the center, his expression unreadable, and behind him followed a small creature. The aliens leaned forward, confused. The creature had soft fur. It walked gracefully on four small paws. Its tail swayed lightly behind it. Its green eyes were calm, and it made no sound. Some students tilted their heads, uncertain if it was even a predator. It was small enough to be crushed underfoot by some of the beasts already presented, yet the human placed it gently on the platform, and the animal sat down, curling its tail around its body, staring silently at the room. The silence lasted only a moment before it broke into laughter. Deep booming laughter from reptilians, clicking laughter from insectoids, shrill laughter from avian beings. The sound filled the great hall, echoing off the stone walls. One scaled student pointed a claw and mocked. "Is this a joke? A prey creature?" Another hissed. "It looks like food, not a hunter." The laughter grew louder. Some beasts growled in amusement as if joining in. The human stood still, his face calm, showing no sign of anger. But as the laughter rolled through the chamber, a different sound began to spread, low growls, claws scratching against the floor, wings fluttering uneasily. The predators in their cages shifted, their bodies tense, some backed away from the bars, their eyes locked not on the human, but on the small creature at his feet, the cat. The instructors noticed first, their eyes narrowing. One of them hissed softly, "Silence." The hall quieted slowly as the students realized their predators were acting strange. The swamp stalker pressed itself against the far end of its cage. Its teeth bared not in aggression, but in fear. The sand reaper curled its legs under itself, its body trembling. Another massive predator let out a high-pitched cry and refused to face the small cat. Whispers spread quickly. "What is happening? Why are they afraid? It's too small to frighten them." The human knelt and stroked the cat's head. The animal purred softly, a sound so gentle it confused the watching aliens. The human looked up at the class, his voice calm but steady. "You told me to bring a predator," he said simply. "I did." His words carried no arrogance, no anger, only certainty. The cat lifted its head and stared into the crowd, its green eyes glowing faintly under the lights of the hall. It blinked slowly, unafraid, its calm gaze passing over every beast in the room. One by one the alien predators shifted uneasily, their instincts screaming, they did not know why, but they sensed something they could not explain, something ancient and merciless inside the small creature. The laughter had died completely now, replaced by a thick silence. The students stared at the human in disbelief, some with anger, others with confusion, a few with something else. Unease, the instructors exchanged glances, their expressions unreadable. But in their eyes flickered the beginnings of respect. The human remained calm, his hand resting on the cat's back, as if he had known this would happen all along. One of the alien students, desperate to break the silence, shouted, "That thing is nothing, I will show you." He ordered his predator forward, a hulking beast with 6 eyes and venomous fangs. It lunged toward the cat's cage, snarling, but the moment it came close, it froze, its entire body shaking, its legs refusing to move. It let out a broken whimper and collapsed onto the floor, refusing to rise. Its eyes locked on the small predator that had not moved an inch. Gasps filled the hall. The instructors stepped forward quickly, their cloaks swirling. One raised his staff to stop the test. But he did not need to. The alien beast had already submitted, trembling, refusing to fight. The cat sat calmly, licking its paw as if nothing had happened. The human finally stood, his calm voice carrying once more, "Size does not decide what a predator is, fear does." His eyes swept across the hall, meeting the gaze of every student, and every predator in this room knows what my choice is. The silence that followed was heavy. No one laughed anymore, no one mocked, no one dared. The cat sat quietly, its tail flicking lazily. But in its eyes was a calm confidence that made even the fiercest predators lower their heads. The students would never forget the moment, because it was the day they learned that humans did not bring prey. They brought death wrapped in silence. The academy had never been so quiet. The great hall that once shook with laughter now carried only the sound of beasts shifting uneasily in their cages. The instructors stood with stiff bodies, their eyes fixed on the small creature that had changed the air of the entire chamber. Students whispered nervously, their voices low, their arrogance gone. Even the proud reptilian who had brought the swamp stalker stood pale with confusion. His predator refused to look at the cat, its body pressed against the corner of its cage as if wishing to vanish. The lead instructor finally raised his staff, his voice sharp. "Enough, the beasts will be taken to the testing arena. Every student will demonstrate the power of their predator under controlled trial." His words trembled slightly, betraying his unease. He looked at the human for longer than the others, his eyes narrowing. He could not admit it, but he was afraid of what might come. The students were ordered to lead their predators to the arena. Heavy doors opened, revealing a massive chamber built of steel and reinforced glass. The walls hummed with power, energy barriers waiting to contain the fights. The floor was scarred from years of blood and claws. Here was where predators proved themselves. Here was where species claimed their pride. One by one, predators were brought into the center ring. Students stood proudly beside them. The crowd of other learners filled the viewing seats, their eyes wide with excitement and fear. The first test began with the swamp stalker. The reptilian student gave his order, and the beast lunged forward, tearing into the holographic targets released by the instructors. Its jaws snapped through steel projections. Its tail smashed into obstacles. The crowd cheered. The swamp stalker roared in triumph. Next came the sand reaper, darting across the arena floor with terrifying speed. Its venom spit melted targets instantly. Its body shimmered with desert camouflage. Again the crowd murmured in awe. Other predators followed, each showing strength, speed, or ferocity. Claws slashing, wings tearing, fangs snapping. The arena filled with the sound of violence and destruction. Finally, the human was called. Every eye turned toward him as he walked calmly to the edge of the arena. The cat padded silently at his side, its tail flicking, its green eyes half closed as if it were bored. Laughter threatened to rise again from the crowd, but the memory of the predator's fear held it down. No one dared to mock too loudly. Whispers instead spread like smoke. "It's too small, it cannot fight, maybe the others were just sick. This will be its end." The human stopped at the edge of the ring. The instructor raised a hand, his voice steady but strained. "Release the next trial predator." The floor panels shifted, and from beneath rose a massive beast, taller than 2 men, its body covered in armored plates, its mouth lined with rows of sharp teeth. Its eyes burned with hunger. It was not a student's pet, but an academy's trained trial predator, designed to test the strongest. Its roar shook the walls, and the crowd gasped. The cat did not move, it sat calmly, its tail curling around its paws. Its eyes locked on the massive predator. The human gave no command. He simply folded his arms and waited. The instructor frowned. "Human, your creature must fight. Give your command." The human's lips curved slightly. "I don't need to." The trial predator lowered itself, muscles coiling, saliva dripping from its jaws. Then it lunged. The floor thundered as its claws tore across the arena. It struck with speed that made the crowd gasp. But in that final instant, when it came close, something strange happened. The beast froze, its eyes wide, its muscles trembling. The cat had not moved, yet its calm green eyes held the predator like chains. A low growl escaped its small throat, and the giant predator stumbled backward, letting out a broken cry. The hall erupted with shocked cries. The trial predator, known for never stopping once it attacked, was retreating, its body hunched, its head lowered. It backed away from the tiny cat. The instructors exchanged stunned glances. One slammed his staff, shouting, "Unacceptable, force it forward." But the beast refused. No command, no pain collar. Nothing could make it step closer. It trembled, its instincts screaming louder than any training. The human knelt slowly, stroking the cat's head, his voice calm but carrying through the arena. "You asked me to bring a predator. I brought one that does not need to prove itself with roars and claws. It only needs to be seen." His words sent a chill through the crowd, because they realized the truth. Strength was not always in size. Sometimes it was in the fear that lived deep in the bones of every creature. The trial was declared incomplete, but no one cheered, no one celebrated. They only stared. The instructors whispered among themselves, some angry, some afraid. The students avoided the human's eyes, pretending to scoff but unable to hide the unease in their movements. Their predators still shifted nervously in their cages, every one of them refusing to face the small creature. As the human left the arena, the cat padded beside him, calm as ever. The silence it left behind was heavier than the roars of every beast that had come before. The lesson was not finished, but already the Academy knew the day was different. The galaxy had witnessed predators of every kind, but none had expected the one wrapped in soft fur and quiet eyes. The test was not over, but the fear had already begun. The Academy had never known unrest like this. In past years the predator assignment had been a celebration, a show of dominance, a chance for every species to remind the galaxy that they carried hunters in their blood. But this year silence followed the human everywhere he walked. Students who once mocked him now avoided his eyes. Their predators refused to approach the cat. Even the mighty swamp stalker and sand reaper cowered in their cages when the small creature's gaze passed over them. The instructors gathered in their private chamber, a circular room of stone and light, their voices low but sharp with fear. One slammed his staff against the floor. "This cannot continue." The test was humiliated. Another hissed in reply. "You saw it with your own eyes." The predator recoiled. The beast refused to fight. "No creature has ever done this." A third leaned forward, his tone cold. "The human is hiding something. That animal is not what it appears to be." They ordered their scholars to begin research. Files were pulled from the Galactic archive. Images of Earth's predators filled the screens. Lions, wolves, bears, sharks, each one more terrifying than the last. Yet when they found the records of the small creature called cat, confusion spread across their faces. Its size was small, its strength minimal. Yet the reports carried a strange weight. Stories of how cats had followed humans through every age, hunters of rodents, silent stalkers of birds. Killing not always for food but for instinct. The scholars spoke of how they played with prey, of how larger animals avoided them despite their size. One instructor whispered, "This is no pet, this is an apex hidden in plain sight." Back in the student quarters, rumors spread like fire. Some said the human had cheated, that the cat was enhanced with hidden technology. Others swore it carried psychic powers. Whispers grew darker. If such a small creature could terrify beasts of war, what must the other predators of Earth be like? Some dared to imagine, but most refused, because the thought chilled them too deeply. The human, however, walked calmly, his expression steady. He did not boast, he did not explain. When asked by a curious insectoid student why the cat made monsters cower, he only answered softly, "Predators recognize what they cannot understand." The words echoed in the student's mind long after. The next day, the instructors demanded further proof. They called the human to stand before the class again. The great arena was prepared. This time they brought out 2 trial predators. Massive creatures bred only for combat. They roared and slashed at the air, their muscles twitching with rage. The class leaned forward, certain the cat would be destroyed. The human placed the cat in the center without hesitation. He stepped back and folded his arms. The creatures charged together. The ground shook with their weight, their fangs bared, their claws ready to tear. The students gasped. But before the predators reached the cat, both skidded to a halt, their eyes wide, their bodies trembling violently. One collapsed outright, refusing to rise. The other let out a high-pitched cry, not of fury, but of terror. It backed away, bumping into the energy walls, desperate to escape. The class sat in frozen silence, their breaths shallow. The cat yawned and licked its paw, indifferent. The human's voice carried again, calm as always. You measure strength by size, by claws, by fangs, but you forget instinct. Instinct is older than weapons, older than training, and instinct tells your predators to fear this. The instructors ended the trial quickly, their faces pale. They dismissed the students in haste. But no dismissal could erase what they had seen. The image of two massive predators trembling before a creature smaller than their claws. That night the academy buzzed with whispers. Some students began to avoid training altogether. Their beasts refused to obey, others grew curious, asking questions about Earth. But no answers satisfied them, because the truth was stranger than any record. The human had brought not just a predator, but a reminder that the galaxy did not yet understand the depths of Earth's dangers. The cat slept quietly in the human's quarters, curled on a small blanket, its eyes half closed, but the predators in nearby cages whimpered through the night, unable to rest, unable to silence the fear that pressed into their instincts. They knew, even if their masters refused to admit it. The small creature was not weak, it was death wrapped in silence, and the galaxy was only beginning to learn why. The academy could no longer contain the whispers. News traveled faster than the instructors could silence it. Students wrote frantic reports back to their homeworlds. Messages leaked into the galaxy-wide channels, and soon the story reached far beyond the academy walls. The words repeated again and again like a curse. The human brought a predator smaller than prey, and the monsters of the stars bowed in fear. On distant worlds, leaders scoffed at first, dismissing the tale as exaggeration from young minds. But when details began to match, when multiple sources described beasts collapsing, roaring predators trembling before the cat, denial grew harder. Fleets of scholars were ordered to dig into the records of Earth. Files long buried or ignored suddenly became the most read in the Alliance archives. The galaxy remembered lions and tigers, wolves and sharks, bears and crocodiles. But it was the records of cats that spread the most unease. Reports described them not as killers of survival, but killers of instinct, creatures who hunted for play, who stalked silently, who lived among humans as companions yet remained feared even by prey larger than themselves. The aliens whispered in disbelief. They hunt not because they must, but because they can. To most species, killing without hunger was unthinkable, unnatural. But to cats it was ordinary, casual. Their small bodies carried a kind of cruelty that unsettled beings bred for war. Back in the academy, the students no longer mocked the human. They avoided his path. They gave him wide space. Even the proud reptilian lowered his eyes when the cat's gaze brushed across him. The Sand Reaper's mistress kept her beast hidden, too ashamed to let it be seen trembling in its cage whenever the human walked by. Predators that had once filled the air with roars now stayed silent. The entire training wing of the academy smelled of unease. The instructors debated endlessly in their chamber, their voices sharp with fear. This is destabilizing. If the galaxy learns that humans control such predators, everything changes. One snarled. Perhaps this is their plan, to make us fear them with something so small. Another countered. But the creature showed no aggression, it only looked, and the others broke. The silence that followed was worse than their shouting, because none of them could deny what they had seen. One instructor suggested removing the human from the program, to quietly erase the threat, but another shook her head violently, and risk making enemies of them? No, not now, not when we do not know how many more predators Earth keeps hidden. The chamber fell silent again, because the question none dared to ask pressed into all their minds. If this was the weakest predator a human brought, then what were the strongest? The next trials were cancelled under the excuse of technical faults. But everyone knew the real reason. The predators would not fight. Even in their cages they had stopped eating. Their bodies tense whenever the cat was near. The academy was built to display power, but now it displayed fear. The human, as always, said little. He moved through the halls with calm steps, the cat padding beside him, its tail swaying lazily. Sometimes it looked up at the towering aliens and blinked slowly, as if amused, and every time it did, those who met its gaze looked away quickly, their hearts pounding. Rumors began to grow darker. Some said the cat was not just a predator, but a fragment of something larger, an echo of an ancient hunter that Earth kept hidden. Others swore humans could command whole armies of such creatures, that their world swarmed with them, waiting silently for the day they were unleashed. The fear was irrational, yet it spread, because fear is a hunter too. One night, as the academy slept, a group of students dared to spy on the human. They crept through the shadows, their bodies cloaked, their breathing shallow. They wanted to see if the cat acted differently when the human was alone. When they reached the door, they peeked through the gap, and what they saw froze them in place. The human sat calmly on his bed, reading an old book. The cat sat across from him, staring at the wall. Then, without warning, its ears twitched, its head turned, and its eyes locked directly on them, through the gap, through the shadows, as if it had known they were there all along. Its pupils narrowed into slits, glowing faintly in the dark. The students ran, their hearts slamming in terror. They did not speak of it again. By the next cycle, the academy was no longer a place of learning. It had become a place of silence, where laughter died and whispers ruled, where the strongest predators in the galaxy lowered their eyes to a creature smaller than prey. And in the middle of it all, the human sat calmly, stroking the soft fur of his cat, never explaining, never justifying, because he did not need to. The lesson had already begun, and the galaxy was starting to realize it. The galaxy had always viewed the academy as a place of prestige, a stage where young heirs of great species showed their power. But now it had become a stage of fear. The story of the human's predator spread faster than any official announcement. It moved through trader channels, soldier barracks, and even the dark corners of pirate fleets. No one could silence it anymore. Everywhere beings whispered about the creature so small yet feared by monsters, and about the human who walked as if he had known this outcome all along. In the chambers of the Galactic Council, the leaders of dozens of worlds gathered, their thrones arranged in a great circle, the hall buzzing with tension. The presiding speaker raised his voice. Reports from the academy disturb us all. Predators bred for war refuse to face a human's choice. How is this possible? His question hung heavy. A reptilian warlord hissed in frustration. It is trickery, some hidden device. No beast of prey would fear such a thing. But an avian elder shook her head, feathers ruffling uneasily. I have studied the transmissions. There was no device. The fear was instinct, and instinct does not lie. A screen lit up in the center of the chamber, displaying the human and his cat walking calmly through the academy halls. The predators in their cages pressed against the corners, avoiding its gaze. The council members shifted uncomfortably, claws tapping, wings twitching, mandibles clicking. One whispered, "If this is the smallest predator Earth offers, what horrors remain hidden?" No one answered, because the silence itself was the answer. Back at the academy, the atmosphere thickened with dread. Students who once strode proudly now moved quietly, avoiding eye contact with the human. Their predators refused to train. They snarled at shadows. They whimpered at night. Some refused to eat until their handlers covered their cages to block the sight of the cat. The instructors tried to force order, but every command fell flat against the weight of fear. The academy, built to display dominance, was becoming a monument of humiliation. The human never raised his voice, never explained. His calm silence was worse than boasting. It made the others believe he knew far more than he revealed. When asked directly why his predator could cause such fear, he only answered with words that unsettled them further. On Earth, survival is not about size, it is about certainty. My predator does not ask if it will win, it knows. Those words spread quickly, quoted in whispers, until they reached even the council worlds. Some leaders called for immediate restrictions on humanity, demanding inspections of Earth's ecosystems. One warlord even shouted, "If they control such predators, then they control terror itself, and that is more dangerous than weapons." Others urged caution, warning that moving against humans might provoke the very beasts they feared. The council was divided, suspicion hung heavy, and in the cracks of their alliance, mistrust began to grow. In the academy's lower levels, a secret test was prepared. The instructors, desperate for answers, released one of the most dangerous predators known. A creature from the abyss of Valise, its body coiled like a serpent, its jaws wide enough to swallow soldiers whole. its venom strong enough to melt steel. They released it into the arena with the cat, determined to prove the small creature was no true predator. The students gathered in silence, their eyes wide with anticipation. The serpent uncoiled, its massive head lowering, its tongue flicking as it tasted the air. Then it struck, a blur of muscle and fangs. But the moment its eyes met the cat's gaze, it faltered, its strike slowed, it hissed in confusion. The cat did not move, it only stared, calm and silent. The serpent recoiled, thrashing violently against the arena walls, desperate to escape. Its body slammed into the energy barriers, its hiss turning into a shriek of terror. Finally it collapsed, trembling, its head lowered to the ground in submission. The hall shook with gasps, even the instructors could not hide their horror. One whispered. It submitted, not to power, not to force, but to presence. The students looked at the human, but he said nothing, only reached down to scratch the cat behind the ears, as if the entire scene had been expected. From that day forward, the human was no longer just a curiosity, he was a warning. Every student who left the academy carried the story home. Every world that heard it carried suspicion, fear, and questions about Earth. The galaxy began to wonder if humanity had hidden its true nature all along, if they smiled with friendly faces while shadows of hunters followed quietly behind them. And still the cat walked calmly beside its master, tail swaying, eyes half closed, never baring its teeth, never raising its voice, because it didn't need to. The fear was already planted, the lesson already growing. The academy had asked for predators, the human had brought one, and in doing so, he had changed the galaxy's understanding of what predator truly meant. The Galactic Council chamber had never been so divided. The great hall where decisions of peace and war were made now echoed with the sound of claws striking stone, wings beating in agitation, and mandibles clicking in anger. Dozens of leaders from across the stars argued fiercely, their voices rising into chaos. At the center of it all was one subject: humanity. The presiding speaker slammed his staff against the floor, his voice booming, silence. Slowly the noise settled into heavy breathing and narrowed eyes. The speaker's feathers ruffled as he continued. Reports from the academy are clear, multiple predators of high rank refused to fight. Even beasts bred for war collapsed in terror, all because of a human and its cat. He paused, his beak clicking as he studied the council. We must decide. Is this a threat or a misunderstanding? A reptilian warlord rose, scales glinting under the chamber lights, his tail lashed in fury. It is no misunderstanding, it is a weapon. The humans mock us by sending a child and a small beast, and yet they humbled our greatest predators. If one creature can do this, imagine what else they hide. His voice hissed with venom, and several other leaders growled in agreement. But an avian elder shook her head, her feathers drooping with unease. You speak as if they revealed everything, but do you not see? That was not even their strongest predator, it was only a fragment, a shadow of what may lie on their world. If they choose to unleash more, can any of us stop them? Her words fell into silence, because none dared to answer. In the shadows of the chamber, whispers spread. Some spoke of humanity's history, of how they had risen from prey-like creatures into galactic travelers, of how their worlds were filled with predators unlike any other. Wolves that hunted in packs, sharks that ruled oceans, birds that struck from the skies, and cats. Small, silent killers that had lived alongside humans for thousands of years, learning not only to survive, but to thrive. Back at the academy, the atmosphere thickened even further. Students no longer dared to challenge the human. They avoided him entirely. Their predators whined in their cages, refusing to train, refusing to fight. Instructors grew frustrated but powerless. Every attempt to test the cat ended in humiliation. The creatures that once filled the arena with blood and fury collapsed the moment its gaze fell upon them. One evening, as the human walked calmly through the academy's garden, the cat padding silently beside him, a group of alien students confronted him. Their eyes wide with anger and fear, one shouted, "What are you hiding? No creature that small can cause such fear." Another hissed, "Is it true? Does your world swarm with monsters like this?" The human stopped, his face calm, his eyes steady. He looked at them for a long moment before answering softly. On Earth, predators are everywhere, in the water, in the air, in the ground. We learned not only to survive among them, but to master them, and some, like this one, chose to walk with us. The students recoiled, their anger swallowed by dread, because his voice carried no boast, only truth. But others plotted in darker places. Warlords and lords of vast empires gathered in secret councils, their faces pale with unease, their voices sharp with fear. If this spreads unchecked, humanity will rise above us all, one snarled. Today it is a child with a small beast. Tomorrow it will be fleets of predators at their command. Another struck the table with a heavy claw. We cannot wait, we must act. We must test their strength before they bind the galaxy to their side. Their plan took shape in whispers, an ambush, staged as a trial, disguised as curiosity but meant to break humanity's calm image once and for all. Back at the academy, the human remained calm, walking the halls with his cat at his side. The students now kept their distance. Some bowed their heads as he passed. Others whispered insults when they thought he could not hear. But none dared to face him directly. The predators in their cages continued to whimper and shake, their instincts stronger than their master's pride. One evening, an instructor approached the human, her voice low, her eyes darting around as if watched. The council demands a demonstration. She said, not here, but on a neutral station, before leaders of many species. Her tone carried weight, a warning hidden inside the words, but the human only nodded, his hand stroking the cat's fur. Then I will bring what you asked, he answered simply. When the day came, the station's great hall filled with leaders and soldiers, banners of dozens of species draped from the walls, the air heavy with tension. The predators of many worlds were brought forward, chained, muzzled, restrained, their roars echoing through the chamber. They were meant to show unity, strength, dominance. The human entered quietly, the cat padding at his side, its tail flicking lazily, its green eyes scanning the room as if it were the only predator there. The trial began with a massive beast, larger than a tank, armored with bone, dripping venom from its jaws. The crowd cheered at its roar. But the moment the cat looked at it, the beast froze, its muscles locking, its eyes wide with something no chains could force away. Fear, it whimpered, the sound too small for its size. Then it sank to the ground, refusing to rise. Gasps swept through the hall. Some leaders leaned forward, their eyes burning with interest. Others narrowed theirs in suspicion. One warlord slammed his fist and shouted, "Trickery! This is no predator, it is witchcraft." But no evidence could support his denial. Every predator brought forward collapsed or cowered before the cat, until silence crushed the chamber. That silence was broken by the presiding council speaker, his feathers ruffled with unease. "We have witnessed," he said, his voice trembling. "A predator feared by all, a predator too small for our eyes but too deep for our instincts." He turned to the human, his voice rising, "Tell us, what else does Earth hide?" The human's calm gaze swept the room, his answer soft but heavy. "You asked me to bring a predator, and I brought one. But do not mistake silence for weakness. Earth has always walked with predators, on land, in water, in the air. We do not show them all, because you are not ready." The hall erupted, some leaders whispering for alliance, others demanding war. The galaxy had split wide open, lines drawn not by choice but by fear, and in that moment the plotters moved forward, soldiers slipping into position, weapons primed, their plan to test humanity with force, to corner the human and his predator. But what they did not realize was that predators do not wait to be cornered, predators watch, and strike when the time is right. The cat lifted its head, its ears twitching, its eyes glowing faintly in the station's lights. And for the first time the leaders realized what true silence meant, not the silence of peace, but the silence before the hunt.